podcast. Here with me today, I have the founder and CEO. If that title's wrong, I'm sorry. Correct me after. Of AGN events, I have Gage Cash here. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing me on to discuss AGN and our plans and the past.
Cool. Yeah. So you are the founder and CEO, correct?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I founded it. Not currently titled the CEO. We
Oh.
don't really have a CEO. We just have a CFO and COO, but pretty much.
Yeah, I respect that. I mean, we're the same way. We don't have titles like that. We just kind of we all guide the ship together at Sector 6 at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But cool. So I've been starting these off with the same first question, and it's what was your first experience with the esports space, or your first encounter with the space? Not necessarily your first job or anything, but the first thing that kind of showed you what esports was.
Yeah, actually, I was. It was back in Ghost Black Ops 2, somewhere around there. I was watching, or I was subscribed to Nade and Scump on YouTube, and I believe it was the time when Nade Shot uploaded his X Games highlight video, and I saw that and kind of reached out to one of my buddies who was experienced in the Halo scene or the Halo esports side of things, and asked him like if he knew anything about the COD, and he told me about GB or game battles, and I looked into that. Figured out that it really wouldn't be that hard to host tournaments, and then found the kind of like the gaming Twitter community, I guess, and got involved with it. And at the time, I was wanting to major in business, so it kind of made sense for me to open my own company, essentially. And yeah, so that's pretty much what got me interested. Was I found GBs, thought it'd be something that I could do for myself, and then gave it a shot.
So how long after that first encounter with esports did you start AGN?
When I started it as a like an actual team, like an org.
Okay.
And then what I did was it was me and a couple of my buddies, and we played just like Twitter tournaments at that time, and then some GBs when we were free. And that developed into me hosting leagues through that organization. And then after that, I changed. My buddies quit playing, so I changed it from an organization to a strictly Twitter tournament. I believe it started as like Sly tournaments, and then it moved to something with SG. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then it moved to Trilogy, and then Shark, and then it got to where we are today with AGN.
Oh wow! So it's been a bunch of different names, all with a similar concept, though.
Yeah, the concept's always been the same. It's just finding that right identity. It was Sly was obviously the clan or whatever, the org, and then after that, I don't know why I changed it from that to what I did. I can't remember the name. It's bugging me right now. And then when we didn't really have a true logo or anything, I actually had a company that followed us, hit me up and gave me a free logo, and that was the original Shark Tournaments logo. And that's why I changed the name from what it was to Shark. And then we got a lot bigger than just a startup company, and I realized that we would be hosting top tier LANs or top tier online leagues, and then our entry level LANs and stuff, like our first ones. That's when I was like, well, we need to make it a more realistic brand name opposed to like Shark Events or whatever. So that's why we rebranded to the American Gaming Network.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess for people who don't know what AGN is exactly, aside from a tournament organizer, give the quick rundown on what exactly you guys do past that, or separately from a standard tournament organizer.
Yeah, I'll pretty much just get into what we do, and then I'll tell us about what makes us different.
Yeah.
The first thing is, we host tournaments, we host showcase matches, we do leagues, we do LANs, pretty much anything you can think of that would bring exposure to a team or player, we do it. when it comes to the competitive realm of things, not necessarily the just playing for us or anything like that. Like we don't sponsor any teams or anything. So we're just your standard tournament company or whatever, just like a lower scale MLG or UMG or things like that. Now, what makes us different from a lot of other companies is we have a presence, a good presence both online and on land. There's a lot of companies out there that don't. Well, first off, a lot of companies don't do showcase matches. A lot of them don't do daily tournaments, and then a lot of the land guys or the local land companies, they don't do online leagues, or you get the online league companies that don't do lands. So that's what makes us different is we do both, and we do both pretty successfully. So that's something I like to take pride in is we're multidimensional, and we have a staff that works well online and on land. It's pretty much two different staffs, but we work together as one. And I think that's a lot of the keys to our success.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you tweeted back in June. That's your pinned tweet. I caught this. I didn't see it when you initially tweeted it, but I did see it recently. You said you don't mind going public with this. I'm looking to work with AFD, Helix, Midwest, Complex, and maybe SoCal for Modern Warfare, and it goes on. But what exactly is your business model in working with other tournament, or I guess because these are all local organizers, right?
Yeah, all those are local guys. Pretty much the biggest company we're working with right now is MES. And that hasn't been formally announced with all the details, but it's been kind of teased and stuff. We're still working out the exact kinks, but I'll have an announcement on that pretty soon. But yeah, all those companies they're local, and like I said a minute ago, that none of them have a presence online. I may be missing one or two that actually do, but not to the scale that which we do it.
Right.
And that's if I don't know if you asked the question, but I assume your question was like, why did I want to work with them?
It was more, what does that working with them, what does that look like? Because obviously they're local, local and on land, and you're, I guess, more than just that.
Yeah. So working with them, most of those are, I don't want to say startup companies, but I want to say they're within their first 3 years. Majority of them are. And a lot of them have been doing it for probably 2 or less, where this will be, when Modern Warfare comes out tomorrow, it'll be the 7th Call of Duty title that I posted for, so my 7th year. So one of the main concern with AGN and one of our quote-unquote problems would be that we don't have equipment or the necessary amount of equipment to host LANs at a consistent basis, like from a LAN center.
Gotcha.
So with that, we're versatile. We can move anywhere around the country. We have staff all over the country, whatever. So that allows us to venture out to partner with these other companies that are just getting started or trying to get their feet off the ground, or things like that. And especially with us and our reputable name and our Twitter presence and just social media presence in general, we bring a lot to the table. And we've shown that on at least 2 or 3 consistent bases from land perspectives. Like you look at Chicago last year, the company we partnered with tried to host a LAN in Chicago. They actually had, I believe it was 6 people show up to it, and they were advertising as like a $5,000 LAN, this, that, and the other, and only got 6 people to show up. And then when I saw that and I knew I had a lot of people that wanted a Chicago LAN, I reached out to them, set it up, and then even like 2 weeks before Team Passes sold, they were really, really skeptical. Didn't think we would sell. They definitely didn't think we would sell out, but they were skeptical that we would even sell like 4 or 8 Team Passes. And then that event actually sold out in 60 seconds, and it kind of just showed exactly what AGN brings to the table and what we can do. And then another case would be looking at Charlotte back in September. A lot of September LANs don't get a lot of teams. If they do, they're just mostly local teams that don't want to travel, just want to come and play just to have a good time, pretty much, see their friends or play with their real life buddies opposed to their actual gaming teammates and stuff. So you look at that, and CLT got like 12 teams for their first LAN, something like that. And then they partnered with us for Charlotte and got 16 teams. And we know for a fact at least 4 of those were brought there strictly through AGN. And then, this past Monday, so 2 days ago, when we put team passes on sale for Indianapolis, it sold out in about 2.5 hours. So that's what I want to kind of use that presence that AGN has and the name and, our experience and things like that to help these other guys out. Like I've said it in my videos that I post on YouTube, to where it's like I don't consider AGN to be a better company than any of these other guys. It's just a thing where we're more experienced. We've been here longer. People recognize the AGN name opposed to some of the newer companies. So when you combine the two things with like their equipment and their venue and what they can provide in that sense, and what we can provide with the social media presence and the name and the marketing, that's what ultimately leads to a better overall event. And with that, it allows these players to travel across the country, know when they're going to get a good LAN through AGN. And then at the same time, they're going to meet these new companies, see what they're about, and then, maybe they'll travel back to the same place for one of their monthly LANs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, do you, so in working with these like the local organizers, does your team go to these events as well, or are you strictly on the marketing side?
Yeah, we do go to them. It's kind of difficult to explain exactly how it works because like we have multiple people that will attend to the events. Like when we've hosted 6 LANs so far, and I don't think we've had the same person besides Tony in the back-to-back Indianapolis. I don't think we've had the same person at every LAN. Like when we hosted the 2 Black Ops 3 LANs in Indy, Tony went and hosted those. We did a 2v2 LAN in Huntsville, and my partner Jeffrey, he went to that one. Then we went to Chicago. I went to that. Tony was there too, so I guess he's the only one that's been to multiple. And then we would go to Ohio in March, and Tony hosted that one. And then we went to Charlotte in September, and Jeffrey went to that one. So yeah, it's kind of, we don't have a set person that goes. It's just kind of who's available. We're all experienced, and then I have guys within the staff and other friends in the community that can help out when needed. So yeah, then we get. I actually would have went to Charlotte, but one of my sisters were getting married on that day, and then for Indianapolis, my other sister is getting married. So I think Jeffrey's going to that one. Yeah. New Jersey, I don't know if me or Jeffrey will be at that one. I'm going to try to make it, but nothing's set in stone yet. So I have another guy that lives actually like 5 minutes from the venue. He's going to be there running that one. And then when it comes to Atlanta in January, it'll be me and Jeffrey at that one.
Gotcha. So like when you go or Jeffrey goes or whoever goes, are they more going to represent AGN and just to make sure that everything goes smoothly, or are they like actually hands-on and working with the production team and doing all that stuff, or like being the host of the event? Like how does that look when you're there on like, boots on the ground or however you word it?
Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix of both. It kind of depends on who we're working with and what their experience level looks like and stuff like that. I would say for Indianapolis and Chicago, or the previous Indianapolis and Chicago, that was all us. That was all Tony and me. Then when it comes to Huntsville, was all us. Ohio was kind of a mix of Complex and AGN. We both had staff there running it, making sure everything was smooth. Charlotte was pretty much all CLT. Jeffrey kind of went as more like a marketing tool, just to be a face for AGN to make sure, we had staff there in case something went wrong or if people wanted to chat with us or whatever. And then, we were there to help CLT with whatever they needed. Indianapolis will pretty much be the UGX squad. We have staff members attending, and they're just pretty much going to be extra hands-on for whatever UGX needs. Because they have most companies like UGX and CLT have dedicated staffs that do that, and we don't want to take anything away from them, especially, if they want the experience. But then we get like Helix. Helix will probably be a mix, and then Atlanta will be all us. So it just depends on the situation, where it's at, who we're working with, and things like that.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting. Coming into our relationship, like with AGN and Sector 6, I guess I didn't understand that dynamic that you had. But like as it starts to make sense as you talk about it, and it's definitely interesting. Definitely not the way I would expect that to go. But it seems to work. You guys seem to be doing pretty well. So it's exciting to watch from my
being
perspective.
versatile is really it's key to this because you have to be able to give and take, and then you have to be able to put like especially online. I've got staff members that do one thing one day, and then the next day they'll be doing something completely different that they'll never do again. So it's just being versatile not only with me and Jeffrey and Tony, but also with the staff from top to bottom. So
yeah, for sure, versatility. I mean, in esports as a whole is definitely super important. I know from the running event side, you got to have a lot of people who know how to do a lot of things just because it ebbs and flows. There's a lot of, more need in one spot and less need in one spot, and then that switches all the time, I would imagine. I've never ran anything like that, but I don't know. But esports as a whole, like, it's same concept. Things go up and down, and, being versatile is definitely super super important to being successful.
Yeah.
So what are your future plans for AGN? Obviously, you got a pretty solid roadmap for the next few events for you guys, but past that, bigger picture, if you care to get into that, what are your future plans?
Hey, how's it going? Just wanted to jump in here real quick and remind you, if you haven't already, to like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, let a friend know about the podcast if you enjoy it. If you've been listening this far, however many episodes you're in, things like the sharing and the commenting and telling your friends and all that. It really helps me out, and it helps me understand what I could do better. That's it. That's all I got. Here's the rest of the episode.
Yeah, right now it's kind of, I don't want to say it's up in the air. Like we have a plan. It's just waiting on CDL to announce whatever they're doing so that we can finalize that plan and execute it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is it's just up in the air with the hands of CDL. I know there's a lot of things that I would like to do, but when it comes to how busy the amateur scene will be with the CDL, it kind of puts locals in a position where they don't really know what's in store. But for what I do know, we have planned. We have Indianapolis coming up. We have a free entry kickoff tournament that'll be pretty big next week. Then we have a $1,500 league starting up. We have 2 more lands outside of Indianapolis. So we have Indy, we have New Jersey, and then we have Atlanta. I've got plans already for going back to Charlotte in February, Ohio in March, and then coming back to the Midwest in some sort. I'm in talks with AFD, talks with SoCal, talks with Midwest, and that's not even everybody. So, there's a lot of, like I said, there's just a lot up in the air. There's a lot we want to do. It's just figuring out how we can execute it and making sure that we don't, interfere with anybody else or take anything away from them. So with that, we're trying to put a lot of emphasis on our online presence. Obviously, we have a pretty good one. And then we're just trying to find new ways to make that better, trying to give the community what they want, the players what they want. So I've got an 8-man staff, not including myself, that's strictly online, just for tournaments and stuff like that. And then you bring on the casters and the statisticians and graphic designers and things like that. We're up to like 20 guys that put time and effort into making sure that our online presence is unmatched. So that's really where we're taking a lot of pride for the first couple months of Modern Warfare, is so that if things don't pan out with all the lands that we have planned due to CDL and stuff like that, we have the online stuff that we can fall back on and make it even bigger and better.
Makes sense. Now, with working or with planning these events, or I guess attempting to plan the events pending CDL approval and all that, like, are you working with them and kind of, they're getting back to you as they can type thing, or is this entirely like you're entirely in the dark and finding out what you guys can and can't do?
It's kind of a mix of both, and there's a lot of gray areas between the communication between Activision Blizzard and the local guys. So pretty much, I've had to rely on talking with other old heads in the community, other companies that have been here for a while that know the fine print of things, to establish the relationship between us and Activision. But when it comes to the information we get, the only thing that I was able to, get access to before it was public was the 2v2 gunfight lands that are going to be happening. I've actually met, and this is public so I can talk about it, is I've actually met with the Atlanta franchise on multiple occasions. I've got another meeting with them next week. And they kind of filled me in on the 2v2 gunfight thing. And outside of that, they said that they have no clue about anything from Activision. So, and that's a quote directly from the guy I talked to. And what's weird is that's not even it's not something that's in the dark, because other people in the community have been told the same thing from other franchises. So I feel like there's actually even a mix between Activision and the CDL franchises as to who knows what's going on. I feel like some franchises have a roadmap for what they want to do, whether it be online or locals or opens or whatever, and then some companies absolutely have no clue what's going on. So when the Challenger division and stuff got announced last week, I feel like some CDL franchises, when it comes to them running events, probably had no clue what was going on until it was announced. And then the owners meeting last Friday probably gave them all the information they need. So I would say pretty much we have to just wait on Activision to announce it, go with what's rumored, and try to find all the leaks we can on the internet.
Yeah, that sounds about right, I guess. I feel like, the way I feel like everything is coming out super, super, super slow. With the game comes out tomorrow or Friday, whatever it is, and obviously the league doesn't come out with the game, but the league starts January 1st.
Actually, I have no clue. I don't even know if that's public information when it starts. So just to give you an idea of how communication goes.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't even remember what the last thing I heard was. I could have sworn it was January 1st, but again,
I think the last thing we heard was early 2020.
Early 2020.
That's what they said. So.
I guess that makes sense. And that could be why I assumed January 1st. But at any rate, I feel like with the league, I mean, if it was to start in January, that gives you 2 months, and there's still so many stones left unturned, and things that there aren't answers for. So it's hopefully it's just everybody's doing a really good job of keeping things under wraps, and everything's just gonna be set in stone when it goes live. But I don't see it being that way, and I'm a little nervous from a fan's perspective, because I have no direct relationship with the CDL in any way. So for me, I'm a little nervous to see what's going to happen, but that's just me.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning. It's kind of like you said, hopefully everybody knows exactly what's going on. They're just doing a good job at hiding it. But I don't believe that's the case either. I don't think Activision's done a good job at communicating it. You have the game comes out tomorrow, and most of the rosters aren't even announced. You have franchises that haven't even released their branding. And to me, it kind of makes it seem like the franchises, they're either waiting for something big, or they're just waiting to try to get more information or something like that. You know what I mean? There's a reason they're delaying it, or they're delaying it trying to figure more out so that they can make it even bigger or something along those lines.
That, or the roster or branding or whatever hasn't been finalized yet, and that's concerning too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't remember when everything came out for Overwatch League, but I could have sworn it was around this time in 2017, and the league started, I think, January 1 of 2018 or early January of 2018. But I feel like at this point, everything was out already. All the teams' logos were out. The rosters were pretty much put together. There was no concern, and obviously when you're starting a league from zero, there's a lot that goes into it. It's way more than what's seen in the public eye, but the public eye, or what the public sees, is also very important because that's the, what people talk about. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens when someone pushes live and we see that first game, or that first production, or whatever it's gonna be that we see first. But definitely interesting. I'll be keeping my eyes on that for sure. What are your thoughts on the league overall, though? How do you foresee that affecting you and your business, and then the Call of Duty esports as a whole?
Personally, to me, it may not be an ideal format for the community in the sense that it's not what they're used to, and a lot of people just don't like change, and that's something that even goes outside of esports. It's just people get in a comfort zone and don't want to change their lifestyle or change their day to day or anything like that. So to me personally, I think the franchising will be big, if it's ran correctly.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing with Activision, and I could be completely wrong again, this is just my opinion, I feel like there's a true misunderstanding between Activision and the amateur community. Because until last year, I feel like there was nothing really just dedicated to the AM community. And then I feel like this year when they announced the over 1 million in prizing, I feel like that's kind of just like okay, we have to do this to keep them happy to where they're still playing, because everything's so focused on the pro level right now that if we lose the amateur scene, then there's not going to be a pro level. So I think, you look at the NFL, you look at the NBA, you look at fan bases of some of those teams. And I think, obviously this first year there will be a lot of I think it's going to be a good mix of people picking their favorite team based on their favorite players at the time, and then you get the small amount that's going to be picking their favorite team based on the location. Like when it comes to me and NFL teams, my favorite two teams I'm from Alabama, so there's no team for me to truly pick, but I'm a fan of the Falcons and the Saints because they're the two closest teams to me, closest franchises. But then when it comes to the COD League, like my two favorite teams will probably be like Chicago or Dallas, just because of the players on the roster. Mm-hmm. And so I think, for the first couple of years, it'll be like that, where fans are following players, and then once the players kind of start to dwizzle out or whatever, it'll be more like bandwagon, if you will, shifting to your hometown, especially once you go to like their first homestand or whatever, and you get a vibe for everything and how the events are ran and the difference in one franchise homestand to another franchise homestand. And that'll help develop the fan base and, persuade people to go from one team to another. So like I said, I think if it's ran correctly, I think it can be big, because especially with esports just in general, on the growth that it has the past couple of years and where it's going to go, there's going to be a lot more companies get involved with it. Because, until recently, you haven't really seen any big companies like you got Mountain Dew and Nissan, and I think Adidas has partnered with somebody, and companies like that have stayed away from esports till the past couple of years. So as things continue to grow, you can expect things like Nike, maybe Apple or Google or something like that to get involved and then just help the scene grow even. So to me, I think it's going to be a positive thing. But like I said, it's just got to be ran correctly, and they're going to have to adjust and work accordingly to the changing in the space and everybody getting accustomed to it and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the need for structure, or the structure in general, is a much needed thing in Call of Duty and the Call of Duty esports space as a whole. We've gone this far, what has been 10 years that there's been Call of Duty esports at a quote unquote professional level. Now I think it's been done okay. I don't think it's been bad by any means. I just think there's a lot of what's the best way to describe it? Like a lot of players feel very entitled, And I feel like rightfully so. Like there are players that may or may not be the face of the league, or that if they leave the league, like Call of Duty as an esport may struggle. Your Derek Jeter equivalents or your Michael Jordan equivalents to Call of Duty, but at the same time, that's put there. I think with a league coming in and the structure being in place, there's going to be a lot less pull that from a specific player, and it'll be more towards the league as a whole. I guess utilizing. How am I trying to put this? Utilizing the teams and the players to help grow the entire scene. I feel like with that proper structure, that will help the growth. And like you mentioned, big name sponsors coming in and putting up a lot of money will definitely help the league grow. There's no question about that. But I think that structure will help develop the players, the professional players, the amateur players, whoever it is. That development as a player, as a person, understanding how to build their own brand and things like that will play a much larger factor than it has in the past. I mean, if you look in the past, the biggest names in Call of Duty have always been teams, either players that are attached to a team with somebody who knows how to build a brand. I mean, look at just about every Optic Call of Duty player has some type of personal brand. One can argue that it's because they're a part of Optic and it just naturally happened, but you could also argue that there's people behind them, helping grow that personal brand. I think with a league full and a team staffed with people who understand how to grow a business or build a brand, I think those players are only going to do better. But it's going to be, are they willing to accept that change? Not being able to do exactly what they want when they want it, and having to think about the brand and the team that they play for more frequently. But I don't know. I think when all is said and done and all the, for lack of a better phrase, bitching and moaning is behind everybody, it'll be good. I think it'll be really good for the space, hopefully.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of like and kind of wish that they didn't do would be take a real sports approach to building the franchise. Because like most of these franchise rosters are more tailored to picking a roster opposed to picking a player and building around them. Because you look at the Lakers, for example, they picked up LeBron James and tried to build around him. And then you get the Heat back in the day had Dwayne Wade, they built around him. Things like that where you get I feel like the Call of Duty League will be structured as, instead of picking a player and then bringing in pieces to fit and to make the team better, it's just you try to pick the best team possible out there that you can.
Yeah.
Because you get as soon as Krim put out that article today that as soon as he got dropped, he called Hastro from Envy to set up a deal with that. So it wasn't really anybody else was even a choice. So when it comes to Envy, if you're going to sign Krim, then you're going to have to get the roster that Krim is either already on or Krim is already building, opposed to just picking Krim and then going all right, well, we need this guy because he's a good SMG, and we need this guy because he's a good flex or whatever, like you would with say the Patriots picking Tua next year in round 1, and then you get a wide receiver to fit and then a lineman to fit or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's different, and I'm interested to see how it plays out because obviously the first couple of years will be all right. But then you're going to have trades starting to factor in. Then you got players retiring and new players in the scene that are turning 18 and things like that. So I'm really interested to see how things roll out, 5 or 6 years from now opposed to the first 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the way you mentioned, I didn't get to read that article. I saw the headline of it and was like, oh, this is like clickbait. Didn't get to read it yet, but it's interesting that you mentioned that as soon as he was dropped, he called Hastro. I wonder how the dynamic went out in putting that team together. Did he call Hastro and Hastro was like, I got these guys already interested, does this work type thing? Or was it more, let's sit down and build a roster together? Because I feel like, obviously you're not just going to throw a bunch of talent together and hope it fits. That never works. Yeah. So the players need to have some type of input. But at the same time, I just wonder how, I'm really curious how that went down. Did he hand select those people, or was it a mutual decision? But something that I'm really, really interested in is what's going to happen with the amount of roster mania that happens now. Like, I feel like there's always one or two big, huge roster shuffles in Call of Duty, and I feel like it's going to be so much harder for that to happen now, and people are just going to have to play with people that they don't necessarily like their personality, or do they just sit out and they put a sub in? Like, what is the answer to that going to be?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. And I'm not trying to change your question, but you actually said something that made me think of what I wanted to say a minute ago when you were talking about like just building the brand of the overall league.
Yeah.
Something that I know that I'm not going to say because I don't know if it's public. The league this year, especially like a 2v2 gunfight, is structured to where it's content driven, to where you get all these personalities and stuff that they're going to be pushing the league so that they can show these numbers after year one to these companies to make it that much bigger. Like that's kind of what's going on with the this is my opinion with supported facts behind it, with the controversial signing of Censor, because I mean the guy hasn't played in what 2 years or at least a year. But he gets signed to a roster like that, and I truly believe the only reason he got signed was because of his presence through YouTube and Twitter and all that stuff. And then you get like, I don't know if this is confirmed or just rumored or whatever, a couple weeks ago where like Mutex and T-Tiny were getting roster spots supposedly, and I think that was mostly because of their engagement through social media as well. I'm not taking anything away from like their ability as a player. I'm just saying that their social media presence definitely factored into the signing of players and subs towards the league, because I know for a fact there's something going down with the 2v2 gunfight stuff that involves content creators and things of that nature. So it's definitely going to be a lot of content driven for this first season, just to get the name out there, just to get the the brand to have numbers to where they can approach these bigger companies and get bigger sponsors and more money put into it.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel similarly, at least about the censor situation. I don't know too much about the other two guys you mentioned, but it makes sense. If you're trying to build a fan base, from zero, who better to pull on for arguably pretty cheap comparatively, would be, or who would you rather? I can't word right now. But who better to bring on than somebody who's got a personality already? Like, whether they play or not, you have X amount of roster spots, and then you only need to field 5 people.
Right.
You don't really get injured in Call of Duty. The first time I noticed a true sub coming in and playing was, I want to say it was Pharaoh playing for Priesta when he got sick at, I think it was Anaheim. Pharaoh subbed in for Priesta because he threw up on stage or whatever it was. And like that was the first time I've ever seen a true sub come in either mid-map or mid-game or at an event where it's not necessarily that someone can't make an event or there's a true like need for a substitute. And it worked out because it would have sucked if they didn't have one. But, what other value do you see in that substitute aside from like treating the substitute like collection of people, like the roster or the your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys? Like, is that considered your farm team, or are you utilizing them to build them to ultimately fill in for a player or something like that? I guess understanding that mindset is going to be another interesting thing to see what happens in the growth of the space and the growth of how they affect the growth of the brands and how they're utilized on like a true league, like a league game day or a homestand or whatever it is. I'm super curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I am too, and I think that's going to be very interesting to just things of that nature, like anything that involves like the roster, how they were formed, I guess, like how rosters were formed, how they're going to be used. Is there going to be a farm team? Because like there is the two-way contract, the two-way contracts for subs to where they can play in like the Challenger division stuff and still be a sub on the CDL rosters. But I feel like most of those subs are just going to team together for the events. So I don't know, or like would you like if you play a team that it's also rumored that you can swap subs or you can sub in the middle of a match. Like in the middle of a series, you can sub. So I think that's going to be interesting as well because you could have like I think rosters are structured where you have 10 guys total, like including coaches and analysts and stuff like that. So you could see rosters that have 5 players only with like 5 coaches and analysts, and then you could have another roster that has 9 players and 1 coach. You know, and I could be wrong about that. But like I said, there's still so much up there and stuff that hasn't been that. You know, I'm just going off of what I've heard and stuff like that. So, you know, you could have it to where you play with 5 guys on map 1, and then map 2 you're playing with nothing but S&D stars, and you know, having the game plan, knowing who's going to be there. You know, like literally game planning for who you're playing against, and not knowing who you're going to play against because it's not going to be the same guys you play against map. Yeah. I think that can be pretty interesting, opposed to like basketball or football. You know their tendencies when these guys are there, and you know who they're going to, you know who's going to be there when you get to these matches. You know, you have no clue. So,
wow, yeah. So like, I think I want to say I don't know when League started doing it, but I do know the first time I saw substitutes in between a series in a game was Overwatch, and that I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, Overwatch, if you're not familiar, is broken down DPS. Support, tank, and then there's flex players. So theoretically, throughout a game, you could a DPS or a flex player could switch from a DPS to a support depending on the hero. But then when you go from a game, what is it called? Capture the point or capture whatever the game mode is, and you switch from one game to another or one map to another where you might need an extra DPS and you want to bring in a full-time DPS over a flex, or you want to swap out a support for a DPS depending on the map. You know, that makes a lot of sense, you know, because maps are much, much different on that game versus Call of Duty. But now switching that over to Call of Duty, I think it's very interesting because there are a lot of S&D stars, and there are teams that, you know, in the past have done historically very well on S&D maps, or S&D the game type as a whole, and then not good on respawn. So I think it'd be really interesting to see like one main guy, so call it your Crim6 or your Clayster, who has the in-game knowledge, is just good all around, and that person stays from map to map, but then you swap out your other 4 guys and call them your S&D roster or your respawn roster. That'd be super interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, there's so much up in the air, so much unknown. That I'm truly excited as a fan, and then just as a guy that works in the community. As a host, like pretty much in the same position that Activision's in, just on a smaller scale, to see how they do things. Because like there's things that we're implementing this year to our leagues that's different. It's new ways of roster mania, if you will, like new that will cut down on roster changes and stuff just for our leagues. That I'm interested to see how Activision does it as well.
Yeah. Definitely interesting. I'm excited. I know a lot of people, it's a hot button topic. I've talked about the Call of Duty League quite a few times on my podcast so far. So if anybody's sick of it, I'm sorry. But I think it's super interesting as a gamer / esports enthusiast who has come up in the Call of Duty space. It's definitely super interesting to me because, I mean, to be honest, it affects a lot of our business as well. Like we do a lot with Call of Duty, or have historically done a lot with Call of Duty. So the amateur scene being changed indirectly affects our company. So I don't know. I'm interested to see. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Should be a lot of fun. Definitely should be a lot of fun. Cool. So I mean, my 2 main topics were talking about AGN. I think we covered that at length, and then obviously the CDL, how it affects you, and what your thoughts on it are on it. I think we covered that as well. So I guess were there any topics or anything like that you wanted to cover? Anything you wanted to mention that we didn't cover so far?
No, nothing I think of. I think pretty much stuff that I wanted to talk about brought up, the previous discussion. So nothing off the top of my head that I can think of.
Cool. We did just get a question. So the owner of Team Like Minded, who's one of the teams that we work with, Ascended, he asked, so how is full cross-platform play going to affect COD leagues? Will they be segregated or will they be together like Fortnite, for example? And without knowing anything about that, on a level past the Call of Duty League, I think that's pretty much PS4 only. But I'm assuming you're asking more from a local / online question or standpoint. So I guess it's probably a better question for you to answer. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. To my understanding, and I've looked at different companies. I'll try to break it down. You have like ESC, AGN, and NGE are the three top dogs. Like whether you want to admit it or not, they're the three best online league services that you're going to find. AGN and ESC are both doing PS4 only. I haven't talked to Sean, or I talked to Sean. He don't know what he's doing yet. But I would expect him to go PS4 only as well. And you could say, from a business standpoint, that's going to kill your business, or not kill it, but it's going to limit your audience, which you're correct. But you got to understand that Activision's eyes are on us a lot more than these other companies. So we have a lot less freedom to what we can do, because if we do something wrong, we get something from Activision, it's game over there. I know for a fact that that's the exact reason that ESC is doing PS4. But then you get the COD League. They have a big league, but it's that league's cross-platform. And you're now they're at the same time they're announcing these cross-platform stuff without even being like private match tested and stuff like that. So you don't even know what you're going to expect. And there's so many other rules that have to be implemented with cross-platform and stuff. It just causes for a bigger headache. Then you have the AML or NAL. I think their leagues are just draft leagues, which is pretty much just free agents getting assigned a team. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if that goes cross-platform. And then you got these other leagues that I've never heard of that are doing cross-platform and just like Xbox only and stuff like that. So to my understanding, there's going to be a mix of cross-platform, PS4 only, Xbox only, things like that. But from my professional opinion and my advice to anyone that's considering joining a league is I would, or just to org owners really, I would consider staying with PS4 only and entering PS4 only leagues opposed to the others, because of they're just going to be better quality, because there will be more support towards that opposed to the other cross-platform and stuff like that. Because essentially the people that know what they're doing, PS4 leagues, and then the people that are still getting their feet off the ground and stuff like that will be doing it. They're only doing cross-platform because there's a small audience that wants it, so they're just looking to try to get that attention. So that's just my opinion. Is I would say, I would try to stay with PS4 only, because you're going to have better experience working with those guys opposed to the guys that are doing the cross-platform just for attention. And that's not talking about everybody. That's just talking about. So.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's a good viewpoint on it. Yeah, obviously, I wouldn't know the first thing about that. From a business mind, that has nothing to do with that. I would definitely say that cross-platform makes more sense because you're going to get more exposure. But I think it's interesting that you mentioned PS4 exclusives will get more support from Activision, which makes sense. So I guess it's a double-sided coin. It depends on what your end goal is, whether you're LAN or online focused or both, or I guess there's a lot of factors that go into it, but definitely good insight on that. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out too, because I feel like With Fortnite, it was a little bit easier to do cross-platform because the game runs pretty much the same on both consoles, and then there's their console advantage in a PC lobby that kind of balances it out a little bit. And I mean, excluding mobile, I would say, but it definitely interesting. I wonder what the console advantage on Call of Duty, or how that'll affect, or not affect the playing cross-platform with a PC player. So that'll be super interesting to see.
Yeah, that'll be something that I would absolutely love to run cross-platform events and like PS4 tournaments only, and then cross-platform tournaments like side by side. But I don't want to do something that gets me in trouble in the long run, or something that's just going to be a bigger headache or something like that. I'd rather keep it simple and stick to what I know is going to work, rather than venture into the dark realms and find myself in a hole and have to dig myself out. So, from a business standpoint, it would be great to run cross-platform everything, but there's a lot of you get to where it's going to be 50-50. You're going to get players that want to play cross-platform, then you're going to get players that want to be PS4 exclusive, and if you do this, you're going to lose business, and if you do that, you're going to lose business. So pretty much you're in a lose-lose situation either way, so you might as well feel confident in what you know.
Yeah, I agree. Makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Cool. So past that, like I said, I covered everything I wanted to. We covered your stuff, got some questions in. This is the shameless plug portion of the of the podcast. So I guess where's the best way to find you or AGN as a whole?
The best way to find us is just through Twitter. You can follow AGN on Twitter at AGN Events, or you can follow me at AGN Quattro. Second to that would be our Twitch, which is AGN__ events. And then after that would be just our Discord, where we're actually going to be doing a lot this year when it comes to like announcements. We're actually running tournaments straight through our Discord. We got a bot with Tournament Kings that set that up for us. So that's another good partnership that we're going to utilize this year. So
nice.
Definitely, I would say Twitter, Twitch, and Discord would be the three main ways to stay connected with us.
Gotcha. Cool. Make sure to check them out there. This came up when you plugged your Twitter handle. Well, where does Quattro come from? I've been wondering this for a while.
It actually comes from me playing football.
Okay.
When I started playing football when I was 6, and so 6 up until 8th grade. That's like 8 years, I think, something like that. I was always number 21 after my favorite player at the time, which was Shad Williams. He was a running back for Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to go from 8th grade to 9th grade. I'm actually going to play on varsity as a freshman. But, being a freshman, you don't really get to pick your number, nothing like that. So I got handed like an old school jersey that didn't even match the varsities and stuff like that. And keep in mind, I was playing with a different jersey.
Yeah.
So then actually at the time I was the 4th string running back, and the 3rd string running back got in trouble, got kicked off the team or transferred, something like that. When that happened, number 4 opened up. So they gave me his jersey, and then the next year we got brand new uniforms, and we got to pick our number then. So that was 10th grade. I picked number 4, wore number 4 all through high school, wore it my freshman year in college, wore it in baseball, everything like that. So that would be 2011, I believe. So that's when I started wearing number 4, and then 2013, I guess it would be 2013 when I started Esports and needed a new gamer tag or whatever. I was like, well, my friends call me Quattro, so might as well just go with number 4, keep it there. So that's where that comes from. And my gamer tag and stuff is actually like Quattro space 04, so it's just 4s all around.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. All right. I don't know why I was so interested in that. It definitely makes sense though. It's a good story. Cool. Yep. So that's it. That's where Gage got his name. That will end this episode. Thank you for hanging out this long. If you haven't already, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, review, leave a review, whatever it is on the platform that you're listening to. It helps me build the podcast, understand what I could do to do better, and all the fun things like that. But without further ado, I'll see you all later in the next episode. Adios. Apparently Zack doesn't really Spanish. Yes, I do. I speak decent Spanish. Yo hablo español. I know it meant for. I just want to. I was just super curious.
Yeah, I feel you.
Cool. So, I probably have to end the stream and jump here. So let me end the stream real quick. And we have to chat anyway. So just give me a second.
Okay.
So I initially intended on playing some Rocket League, but I do have to get home after I have this not podcast call with Gage. So if you're in here, thanks for hanging out as always. I'll be streaming tomorrow, Zarby. A regular stream tomorrow, I think. Probably some Rocket League. I have some ideas that I want to run past people who are interested in Rocket League. So if you're interested in Rocket League, tell your friends. I have an idea that Josh and I came up with today, so that should be fun. Well, thank you for hanging out. Zarby, thank you for the sub. My man. Ascended, thank you for the question. You are feeding me content to supply my podcast with knowledge, so that's cool. But other than that, I will catch you all next stream if you're around, or podcast, or if you want to talk to me on Twitter, that's cool too. But other than that, I'll catch you guys later. Adios. Peace. Maniac coming in at the end. No. Or maybe you were here. But anyway, I'll see y'all.